off probably 5 key things, and one is how to spot a dangerous diet, 2 is why dieting is so stressful, and 3, how dieting contributes to weight gain, 4, the stress weight gain diet blunder, and why we eat. To lose weight and to keep it off, we need to understand our relationship with food. So I'll save that for lucky last, but that's the 5th point and probably the most worthwhile. So do stay around for that. So I'm Lisa Cutforth, and I guess I wanted to share some things with you about myself. The first is that I know what it's like to have been overweight. I'm not going to assume that everyone on this call is overweight, but I do want to just share with those of you that are struggling with your weight currently that I know what it's like. I gained 21 kgs in very short 3 years, between the ages of 18 and 21, and it took me a couple of years to lose that, and I lost it slowly, and I managed to keep it off without dieting. But those 3 years of gaining that weight, and when I reached my heaviest, they were not a really happy time in my life. The second thing I wanted you to know about me is that I'm actually qualified. I'm degree qualified in nutrition and psychology, so I'm going to be talking from that place. And thirdly, I've been in this game for nearly 10 years, nearly a decade. I've been consulting as a nutritionist, so I do have experience behind me. So it did take all my willpower. I thought I'd just share this fun slide with you because I finally quit dieting. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are on a diet at any one time, and a lot of that has to do with the traditional approach to weight loss. And you can't really blame dieters for that because there's a lot of health professionals and health policy and government guidelines that will tell you that if you want to lose weight, all you have to do is 2 things. You just need to reduce your food consumption and increase your energy output. So eat less and move more. So many people turn to diets to achieve that. However, what happens if everything we thought we knew about weight loss was inaccurate? And so tonight I'm just going to pose to you that dieting does gain weight, and I'm going to cover some of the evidence so that you get really clear on the evidence that diets do cause weight. And the first thing that I'll draw your attention to is a study done by UCLA, the university, and they looked at the research. They did some research on the long-term outcomes of calorie-restricting diets, and the first thing they found was that dieting is a consistent predictor of weight gain. So surprisingly, you'd think that people were trying to diet to lose weight, and yet they were ending up with weight gain over time. The second important finding was that 2 out of 3 of the dieters regained any weight they lost. And the third important finding was that diets didn't provide any health benefits or lasting weight loss for people. So let's look, what is the problem with diets? Why are diets so problematic? And why do they lead to weight gain? And so the first point that I'm going to unpack for you is the idea that diets are stressful. And this I feel like this is one of the keys to just how and why diets do cause weight gain is the stress element. And I'm going to unpack it as best I can for you. But really, diets cause 2 types of stress. They cause a physiological stress and a psychological stress. And the way the body responds to stress over time is weight gain. So just to be clear, which diets, because there's a difference between diet, our diet, as in the food we eat, and diets. So what I mean when I'm talking about diets, well, I'm talking about the most stressful diets, or diets that are overly restrictive, or diets that involve skipping meals, or diets that are very low calorie, so that, or diets that are very low nutrient, or diets that promote rapid weight loss, or affect key body systems unnaturally. So those might be laxatives or high caffeine products or stimulants or those magic pills or potions, or diets that contain laxatives or things that encourage you to eat in unhealthy, unnatural ways. And the reason why is because these diets or dieting causes stress in the body, and stress will lead to weight gain over time. So you can see how this cycle feeds itself. Also, stress affects our sleep, our eating behavior, our food preferences, and how much fat we store. So the more stressed we are, the more we become prone to weight gain. So the last thing you want to do is add to that burden of stress by putting yourself on a very on a restrictive diet, or restricting your food intake or your nutrients or your energy levels, because that's going to have a negative impact. And why is that? And I'm sorry about this rather graphic image. I thought about it afterwards and thought I probably shouldn't have used it. I don't want to offend or upset anyone. But starvation is stressful. So I just put that in to, that diets can feel like a form of starvation in the body. And, just to make the point that obesity is not just a modern problem. We talk about overweight and obesity in this new epidemic as if it's never existed in the past. And actually, when we look at past research, we look at socioeconomic status and weight, we find that in populations for many years around the world, there have been pockets of the population that have suffered with overweight and obesity. And interestingly enough, these are often in the very poor communities. So, for example, these are some pictures of some Zulus in South Africa, where I'm from. But a severely restrictive diet, voluntary or not, is correlated with weight gain. And what's interesting is that, often the children are malnourished or underfed and really skinny when they're young. And it's not and then the adults, as the mothers might be overweight, but that's not because they're eating all the food and the children are starving. It's because of the way the body adjusts over time and adapts over time. And there's a few theories on how this works, but we find that the reason why low socioeconomic status is correlated with obesity has a lot to do with the way the body adapts. There's theories about survival of the fattest, and that it's a genetic component, and this gene kicks in. So the gene needs to be turned on. It's triggered by starvation or not enough food or a lack of nutrients. And obviously stress, malnutrition, and the type of food eaten. So all of these factors kick in, and the body survival mechanism turns on, and the body becomes more efficient at storing fat and excess, and making sure that it's holding on to everything that it gets. So basically, survival kicks in, and your body compensates, and it becomes more efficient. And dieting often makes your body think it is at risk of starving. So if you're skipping meals, or you're having very low nutrient diets or very low calorie diets, the same mechanisms, these starvation mechanisms, can kick in. So even though you're not physically starving, the body doesn't always know the difference, because these are old programs and they're survival programs. And similarly, and just while we're talking about survival mechanisms, one of these survival mechanisms of the body is our body's reaction to stress. And our bodies have lots of mechanisms in place to survive, and one of them is the fight and flight. And if we look at how the body responds to stress, or the effects of stress in the body increases certain things, and it's to prepare itself to run away or to fight for its life. So it will increase certain hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. It increases the heart rate and the blood pressure, increases muscle tension and brain activity, increases breathing, it increases blood sugar. You might feel things like your dry mouth or perspiration, but over time, what happens, and it decreases digestion, obviously, because the blood's going to your limbs in order to fight or flight, so you don't need to be digesting food at that moment. It also slows down repair, your immune system, your metabolism, and your libido. So that's the short-term effect. Long-term, if you're exposed to ongoing stress, and our modern-day stresses are very different. It's not a lion chasing us that we need to run away from. The stresses are very different, and so often we're exposed to chronic stress, so stress over time, and the effects of those stress hormones, ongoing, repeated, in that cycle can lead to things like chronic fatigue, allergies, blood pressure, stroke, tension headaches, and your acid-alkaline balance becomes distorted. You can have problems like anxiety, depression, your appetite's affected, and absolutely it can lead to weight gain over time. You might also, because of the way that these stress chemicals affect and slow down your digestion, you can end up with malnutrition, you can end up with bloating, you can end up again with you're undernourished, and you can end up gaining weight or having cravings for certain foods and everything like that. So those are the effects of stress. And if we look at the consequences, so what does that do to the body, and what are the mechanisms, how exactly is that affecting weight? Well, one of the key things that the stress does is, it increases certain hormones, and that affects blood sugar. So your blood sugar control, so your blood sugar, your body is releasing this extra glucose into your system in order to prepare you for a stress response, or to fight or to flight. And then if this isn't used up, it's taken into the body. And if you're eating more or whatever's happening, your blood sugar can go into this roller coaster where it goes high and low. And over time, you're going to get other hormones that are released to control their blood sugar and bring those glucose levels down. And basically the mechanism for that is you store it as fat. So in order to try and stabilize your blood sugar level, your body will just be storing that excess. And so then, depending on the type of food you're eating, you can be storing more excess all the time. And that can have a knock-on effect. So another hormone that's really being strongly linked to weight gain and stress is cortisol. And certain hormones, so cortisol will increase your appetite, it increases your blood sugar, it increases your fat receptors around your gut, it increases inflammation, it interferes with other hormones, and it affects muscle tone because of the way that it impacts growth hormone. It affects your sleep because of melatonin, and all of these can drive weight up eventually. So you can start to see the picture of stress ongoing, and how that leads to weight gain. So that one of the biggest problems with diets is that they actually are stressful. And why are they stressful? Well, because if you, depending what your BMI is, or what your metabolism is, you need to meet certain calorie and nutrient needs. And if you're restricting your food intake, you might not be reaching those. The second thing, that malnutrition can set in, cravings can set in, deprivation energy. You see it, but you mustn't eat it, so you start to feel restricted. That's really difficult. And so you develop this feeling psychologically and physiologically. Your body doesn't always know the difference, that it's not actually starving, it's not actually in danger, but you can feel like you're starving on these severely restricted diets, very low calorie or low nutrient diets. And you can be overweight and undernourished, and that will trigger the starvation program in your body and in your brain. And basically that's because our cells in our brain need fuel to function, and they need nutrients, and so instinctively it will ask for you to get those needs met. And basically it can be like a do or die, an eat or die. That's the message that gets turned up, is I'm hungry, I need to eat, and okay, I really need to eat now, and that message can become really strong. So and as we know, that psychologically a diet is stressful because it takes effort. If you have to think, if you are constantly bombarding by eating cues, which we are in our modern day environment, it's very easy, and there's a lot of opportunity to eat, there's a lot of access to food, there's a lot of access to unhealthy foods, there's lots of marketing and messages out there that are giving us lots of opportunity, or reminding us or interrupting us day by all the time, just to tell us to eat or to eat more. And because you're bumping into this all the time, it takes a lot of energy to have to say no. And it can start to feel, because this temptation is everywhere and these eating cues are everywhere, it can feel like you're dragging your diet with you and you've got this ball and chain around you, and it's exhausting, and you can feel trapped and frustrated and a bit caged. And what that does is it's going to set up a rebellion, and over time there's going to be some sort of rebound effect. And I'd just like to draw your attention to another bit of research in Genes, Brain and Behavior in 2013 that found that they did research on the effect of chronic stress and food restriction on body weight, and they actually found that participants gained weight, and they found that participants overate in response to repeated food restriction and stress. So while you go on a diet in the hope to achieve one outcome, it ends up causing an outcome that makes the initial problem worse. And I'm sure that many of you can relate to the diet cycle, whether you're overweight or not. That whole, you start a new diet, there's some initial weight loss, a diet becomes unsustainable, you fall off the wagon, you regain the lost weight plus more, and then you feel the guilt and the shame, and then you start a new diet. And usually that's what the cycle looks like. And it's because of that deprivation and restriction that drives that, where you're saying no, 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 and then you rebel. And often I will get clients who say, but food's my only drug, or food's my only relief, or my only the only thing that I give into. So I don't want to have to restrict myself or deprive myself. It's the one thing that helps me feel good. And so they give in. And then they feel guilty and they feel like they've failed, and that just drives the whole cycle again. So it's enormously stressful trying to exist in deprivation energy. And I threw in this slide here with from the movie. One of my favorite movies is the movie Chocolat, but this really illustrates that point beautifully, where the mayor is on Lent and he's fasting and he's not eating. He won't allow himself to eat any food, forget chocolate. And so he goes out and one night tries to destroy this evil chocolate temptation, and he ends up gorging himself to a stupor instead. So when we set ourselves up for failure when we go down the track of a diet. And I love this little cartoon. May the stress of your weight loss resolution not lead to relentless binge eating. And in fact, we find that it usually does. And there is research as well that does show that. So let's just sum up how stress causes weight gain. We know that stress causes weight gain because it increases the fat receptors around the gut, and it increases fat storage. We know that it influences our food preferences. We know that stress affects our digestion and our energy. Stress affects our sleep. When we're sleep deprived, that's absolutely influences our eating behavior, because we try and eat more to pick ourselves up, and we also awake longer, so we have more opportunity to eat. So you can see how stress definitely feeds into the weight gain cycle. And if you imagine you added a diet at this point, you're just going to make the problem much worse. And I just wanted to show this picture here because it shows that the different types of fats, and this is actually a slide, and it's an image of visceral fat content in men with the same waist circumference. And you can see how, even though they might not look, these men could all be standing in a row and they would look like they had the same size weight, you can see that their fat deposits are very different. So we can have this internal fat, and we can have all this stuff going on. And just so that you know that even if whatever's happening in your body, stress can absolutely contribute to you storing fat, even if you're not eating too much or not, and even if you are losing weight, it doesn't necessarily mean you're losing fat. So let's talk about some more research on specifically dieting and that and the stress connection in that role. A woman called Mary Boggiano did some research, some really interesting research on binge eating disorder. She was trying to find out what leads to binge eating. And so she did research with rats. And what was really interesting is while she was looking at what causes binge eating disorder, she actually found certain factors contributed to weight gain. So that's why I'm going to share this. Is in her experiments, Mary was looking at the impact of restriction and dieting, stress and genetics and environment, and how this affected binge eating. But what she really found was some really interesting outcomes on how they contributed to weight gain. So this restrictive diet and stress research, she found that she looked at genes, and she found that, yes, sometimes genetics played a part, but it wasn't the key difference. She looked at environment, and it seemed to have a big influence. So the combination of the genes and the environment obviously compounded. But she looked at what contributed to the binge eating, and she found that restrictive or dieting plus stress combined by an environment of highly palatable food cues, so whether they could see those food cues or not, all those factors together absolutely led to the binge eating or to eating more, and they led to weight gain. So it was a combination of this history of dieting, which was really interesting, plus stress, plus these highly palatable food cues, and all those together absolutely contributed to weight gain. So that was some really interesting research. So then while I'm talking about research, this next bit of research is really interesting because it helps us understand why diets don't work. So it's not just a matter of having enough willpower. If you're already stressed, you will not be able to hold a restrictive diet down. So let's look at the next bit of research, because it helps us understand what a stressed brain does, or how stress affects the brain, and then how we react to food when we're stressed and deprived or on a diet. And there's some research done by a woman called Mellon, 2010, and it looked at brain state. And there's a book called Wired for Joy, which you could read about this. But basically, she looked at selected brain state related characteristics, and her theory was that it's our brain that drives behavior and drives this eating, and that's where we need to start and be influencing, rather than starting with food, because depending on what state your brain is, there's going to be different cognitive, emotional, relational and behavioral consequences. So for example, if you're feeling good, you're going to interact with you're going to behave differently. Your behavior might be optimal. Whereas if you're feeling stressed, it's much harder to make healthy choices about food and eating. And so what she found, excuse me, sorry about that. So what she found was that when we're in the brain state 1, which is this positive brain state, it was very easy to change our state by looking through lifestyle pleasures and satisfying hedonic rewards. And when we were in the stressed brain state, natural pleasures didn't satisfy. So just to explain the difference between that, what does hedonic mean? Hedonic is when you're able to get pleasure from inside. So you can think about saving the environment and saving the planet, and you can think about your passions and your life's purpose, and that brings you joy. When you're in brain state 5, you're stressed, you're relying on outside or external pleasures or rewards in order to change state or make you feel different or better. So when you're in this brain state 1, hedonic rewards are accessible, and when you're in brain state 4 or 5 and you're stressed, hedonic rewards are not accessible. So in that state, so in brain state 1, it's quite easy to reach for an apple. In brain state 5, you're more likely to want apple pie. And it's in this state that we might start to eat emotionally, or we do something called distraction eating. We eat when we're stressed or we're bored, and we have a preference for pleasure eating. And we're eating in an attempt to alter our state, to soothe or distract or comfort ourselves, rather than eating to nourish our bodies. And that's usually because of the state the brain's in. So we can see how both stress and malnutrition can trigger cravings, and the combination of being on a restrictive diet, feeling stressed, can trigger cravings for high fat and high carb food. So we can be more inclined to reach for that hamburger, or more inclined to reach for that, that Coca-Cola or that coffee and that croissant or that donut when we're in that state. And so that's why, to put yourself on a diet, it's just going to exacerbate that, because you've just got to fight so much harder in order to overcome that. So we know that this combination of diets and stress are really triggers for disordered eating. And disordered eating is anything from eating in secret to binge eating, or eating too much of the wrong kinds of food, or not eating enough so that you have this low nutrient food, or eating highly pleasurable foods for non-hunger reasons. And if you're eating to try to change the way you feel or to meet an unmet need, unfortunately, though you're turning to food to do this, it usually makes it worse. And there will be other more appropriate ways to meet these needs. But the cycle, once started, it seems to be self-perpetuating. And the very worst thing you could do if you are in this position is to start on a diet. Because if you add them all together, stress, dieting, restrictive eating, and malnutrition, you've got a recipe for disaster. And you will struggle with your weight, and you will make the problem or the issue worse. And your health and your energy levels, as well as your weight, will suffer. And it's interesting, I'll just show you another little cartoon. Because unfortunately, the thing that you were hoping would help you feel better, which is dieting, usually actually makes the problem worse. And I show this picture because I wish I was as thin as I actually was back when I thought I was fat. I'll never forget when I was 16, and a lot of young girls, unfortunately, when they're young, do have body image concerns, and I was quite normal like that. And I remember my sister, my older, wiser sister, saying to me, Lisa, one day when you're in your 40s and 50s, you're going to look back and think, gosh, I was cute, gosh, I was beautiful, gosh, I was slim. And so just to remember that now, and try and just love who you are now. And it's a shame that we can't do more of that, but it's really, really important just to know that dieting or going on this approach at all costs to try and lose weight is not the best strategy. There are healthful ways and unhealthful ways to do it. So stress can be a trigger on its own, but throw a stressed person into deprivation mode, like a diet, and into our modern environment with an abundance of highly palatable food or hedonic pleasures. It's like sending a loaded gun into a playground with a child. You're just defenseless against, defending yourself. And that's because our environment is set up in such a way that it's very difficult to use our intuition. There's so many different influences coming in, and we're marketed to, and we're being controlled and manipulated in all sorts of ways through marketing, and oftentimes the system knows more about ourselves and our behaviors than we do. And if we live in a life where we are unaware, we're going to fall victim. So it would be nice if I could just give you a one-slide solution to correct the problem. But that's really hard to know what to eat in our modern world, where we're spoiled for choice. And actually, it's very difficult to even eat intuitively anymore. And that's why in my course I focus a lot on eating mindfully. Many of the work that I do, we practice eating to nourish our bodies in our highly stimulating environment, and how to use discernment and how to eat mindfully because we had to relearn how to eat intuitively, but so we eat mindfully, and that's the next best thing. And that's because eating doesn't exist in a bubble. So diets are problematic because they don't take your whole life into consideration. Putting you on a diet isn't going to fix anything because it bears no consideration for the other stuff that's going on in your life that also interferes with your eating and drives all sorts of your behaviors, including your eating behavior. So it would be easy if we just ate for the sake of nourishment and all food was simply that, perfectly nourishing, but we don't, and it's not. So we need to take it one step further, and we need to actually understand our relationship with food. Is if we hope to lose weight and eat more healthfully, we first need to understand our relationship with food better. And this can be hard to do if you aren't aware enough or mindful enough about what is driving your behavior or contributing to being overweight. So the big problem is that because eating doesn't exist in a bubble, usually eating is being driven by other forces, both internal and external. And when we can identify these, you learn how to manage them and lead yourself beyond them. And so, in the program, I do unpack this in great detail, but I just wanted to share it with you today, is that there are all sorts of factors that contribute to the problem of being overweight or obese. And so it's important to understand that there is so much going on. We need to understand what is at the heart of your weight struggle. We need to find that and get clarity on what might be influencing or driving your behavior. You need to know, why do you eat? What makes you eat too much? What makes you eat unhealthy foods? What are your unmet needs? Because you'll find that many people don't just eat because they're hungry. They're eating to stimulate, they're eating to soothe themselves, they're eating to distract themselves, they're eating to comfort themselves, they're eating to calm themselves, they're eating to celebrate, reward, commiserate, they're eating because they're tempted. So you throw a diet in there and say, stop eating. You're not just stopping nourishment, you're blocking a whole lot of outlets. So we need a different strategy. And the first part of that is awareness around why you eat, because there's lots of different reasons we eat. And then in my course and programs, I talk a lot about the 7 different hungers. And there's a wonderful book by a woman called Chosen Bays, and that talks about mindful eating. But one of the seven hungers, for example, where you have your sensory hungers, where you could walk past a fish and chip shop or a coffee shop and smell the aroma of the food or the coffee and think, wow, I fancy that. Or you could taste food. You have a bite of some chocolate and think, I fancy some more of that. Or you eat a whole plate of lasagna and then you need to go back for seconds because it tasted so good. Or hungry eyes, you see something and you need to eat it. Or there's proximity, something's within your arm reach, so you just keep eating it long after the point that you've had enough to eat. We also have a mind hunger, like mental hunger, which is a memory of food, or the time where you know that there's ice cream in the freezer, so it kind of calls to you and you feel like, I need to eat that ice cream, and it's because you remember it there, or because you have a positive association with that food. Sometimes we can be eating for emotional reasons, so we can be triggered, or we're eating to comfort or soothe ourselves. Again, or because of associations. Or we might actually eat for the 2 physiological reasons, and one of those is you're physically hungry, so in your stomach your tummy's rumbling and it's been so many hours since you last ate, and so you're physically hungry. Or you could have cellular hunger, in which case your brain or something is giving you the sense of a craving, or a feeling like you're lightheaded or something like that, your blood sugar's dropping, or you're in need of some sort of nourishment or nutrition. And so we do find that there are these different cues or these different triggers that prompt us to eat. And these cues are personal, situational, or conditional. And the personal triggers will be triggers like hunger, or personal triggers like emotional triggers. The situational triggers will be, the food that you bump into. So that could be, tea and cake on a Friday at work, or passing the drive-through McDonald's on your way home, or something that is just situational, so you bump into it. And then a conditioned response will be that your habits around eating. So perhaps you might have a habit that when you go home, you pour yourself a glass of wine, or you might have a habit that you always have a couple of biscuits with your tea in the afternoon. Whatever it is, and those will be your conditioned responses that will cue you to eat. And then we can eat for emotional reasons. So knowing what to eat is not enough. You need to be clear on why you're eating. Some people do eat in order to feel better. And we know that our emotions absolutely can affect our eating. We know that people eat for stress, emotional, or comfort eating. We know that research confirms people eating behavior changes during stress. We know that the amount and type of food they eat changes. And we know that usually people are attempting to change a state or distract themselves from comfort or low serotonin by turning to hedonistic or pleasurable foods, and usually they're high in fat or sugar. And so research confirms the stress brain will seek out these hedonistic foods. So emotions is one component that can cause you to eat that we need to deal with before we can put you on a diet. Is we need to address what those reasons are that you're eating. And another thing that is associations. It's not about the coffee. It's not about the chocolate. It's not about the chocolate cake. We can be eating for all sorts of reasons, and it's not about the food, because remember, food is just to nourish. So what is the association? When you think of a food, and you could do this yourself, just doodle it. You do a little, write something in the middle, and then do a little mind map or spider diagram around it. What is the association you have to your favorite food? What is the magic about it? What is the positive association? Why do you eat it? Or a food that you hate. Why do you hate it? I remember having a client, and she hated eating fish, and she said it reminded her, and she'd had a bad relationship with her dad, and the fish reminded her, the smell of fish reminded her of that. And so it's very interesting that it was only when she started to unpack it that she realized that connection. In the same way that, I didn't like coffee very much, but coffee reminded me of my dad and my sister. So I had a positive association with the smell of it and it brewing. I always liked, but I didn't like the taste of it. Whereas now, my husband drinks coffee, and and I've got into habit since my daughter was born to have a coffee 3 or 4 times a week. And so now the associations I have with coffee are very positive, and I actually call it my coffee happy. I don't have it every day, but that's only because I'm conscious and aware that it could become a conditioned response. So we need to understand, if you can identify, we need to understand that we have needs as human beings, and needs are universal, but we also needs are highly personal. So whatever your needs are, it's understandable, and that's fine. They can be your needs. But we need to understand that if you're using food, which is to meet a nourishment need and a nutrition need, to meet other needs, then that can become problematic for your weight. So we need to rather be thinking, what are the other ways to get those needs met? Be thinking, how are you meeting your needs, and how else can you get them met? Because needs are never attached to one person or one solution. And you need to identify your unmet needs and figure out which of those you've been trying to soothe or dull with food. Because that's going to be pertinent to weight control or weight loss, and a more healthy relationship with food. And that's one of the fundamental differences, and the reason why I created the program that I run called Size Fantastic. And that's because I think it's really important to ask the question when we're looking at weight management: what is driving behavior? Because before we hope to influence energy in and energy out, we need to understand that there are reasons people do what they do, and often people aren't consciously aware of those. But if we can understand what is driving behavior, and if you can understand what is driving your behavior, that's when you're in a very powerful position to do something different or influence it in a positive way. Because sometimes we have maladaptive coping or coping mechanisms. So we put something in place short term and it's not the best solution, but we just didn't realize that we had other options. And so I do a lot of work with my clients where we awaken ourselves and help ourselves see who we really are, because your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. It's a wonderful quote by Carl Jung, and it's really important because it helps us understand that it's not just about your weight and what you look like on the outside. It's really important to understand what is going on inside. Who am I? What's driving my behavior? Because the more you can understand what's going on inside, the more you can influence how that's reflected on the outside. And a key question you can ask yourself is, are your strategies effective? Because you'll have a need and there will be different ways to get that need met. In the same way that if your need is to lose weight, for example, dieting is only one way to get that need met. And as I hope by now I've unpacked for you very clearly and convinced you that dieting is not the most effective way and that there are actually other options that are probably more effective. The university that I went to did a wonderful study and it looked at a whole range of different diets over time and followed participants. And yes, while there were different results in the short term between, for example, the Atkins diet and low-calorie diets and everything, over time the differences shrunk and shrunk and shrunk, and there weren't that many differences in the overall weight gain on the weight loss by participants depending on the diets. But the one interesting thing that stuck with me about that research was that adherence was the winner. The diet or the food, the way they were eating to nourish their bodies, the ones that stayed with that program longest was when the diet, they could stick to the diet, that it was actually easy and fitted best into the context of their lives. So, and the problem is the very nature of diets when they're restrictive or they shakes or they've got potions and all those sorts of things and magic pills, is that they're designed in a way that are unsustainable. So we need to reframe our definition of diet to be a word that means eating to nourish. Diet should be about nourishing your body and meeting your physical need for nutrition. Absolutely, food should be pleasurable and we should be able to get pleasure out of eating, but that comes in balance and context. That sort of diet would be sustainable, especially if we also paid attention to getting our other non-nourishment needs met in more appropriate ways. So, just to refresh, a diet to lose weight, it is not the most effective strategy. So we need to remember why and the whole purpose of eating. The whole purpose of eating is because we need food. Food is for nourishment. So the best diet is one that is nourishing and sustainable. And even when it's low calorie, because in fact, provided it's nutrient dense, a low calorie intake can be favorable for longevity. But we need to understand that a calorie, all calories are not created equal. So if you're just following a low calorie diet, that's not going to be enough. You need to pay attention to the nutrient density. What nutrients are you getting out of that diet? Because that's what's going to make the difference. And it also feels less restrictive. So we need to figure out how to love ourselves back into shape. And I love this analogy because there are many different ways to solve a problem, and with every one of the barriers that you come into, there'll be different ways to approach it so that the problem goes away or becomes more manageable for you. And that's not to undermine anyone's barriers, but it's to give you a fresh approach to weight loss or to managing or to feeling healthier or having better energy levels, whatever it is that your goal is. I mean, it needs to start with accepting where you are. Because when you love yourself and you accept where you are, you actually honor yourself and you eat and behave in a different way towards yourself. So, for example, think of one of your loved ones, or think of your child. How do you respond towards them? And then think of someone that you don't really care about or don't really respect, and think about how you respond to them. So straight away, when you change the way you frame up your relationship with yourself and think, okay, how am I going to honor myself? How am I going to respect myself? How am I going to love myself? That just in the very nature of taking that approach with yourself and accepting where you're at and asking yourself questions and getting curious with who you are and what's important to you, you can straight away change the whole dynamic of your relationship with yourself and food and your weight. So how do you heal your relationship with yourself and food? Well, the first step, as I've alluded to, is awareness. You need to get curious about yourself. You need to know what's important to you and what lies at the root of your weight. Is it an unmet need? Is it compensatory in some way? Is it protective? Is it rebellion? Then you have to get really optimistic. Optimism, you have to accept yourself for who you are and where you're at, and then focus beyond your weight and your flaws. You're so much more than your weight. You're so much more than a number on a scale. And spend some time focusing your attention on that rather than just on some negative or perceived negative aspect of yourself. The third is education. Become informed so you can make wise choices. There will be stuff that you need to know. So ask yourself, what better skills or resources, what do I need to know in order to be able to look after myself better? Then ask yourself how you can honor yourself, meet your needs, eat to nourish. And 5, keep calm and carry on. Whatever you do, don't give up. It's really important that you keep going. Resilience is key. So what does the Size Fantastic program do? Well, I've showed you this model of health briefly, but I developed this program that went beyond diet and asked more complex questions for that very reason, because diets don't work and people need to understand the bigger picture. Because once we understand all the things that cause us to become overweight, then we can problem solve them all. And the Size Fantastic approach does that. It turns that model inside out. So at the heart of it, we can be Size Fantastic, and we can have greater control over ourselves and our lives and more of what we want and need, because we're coming from a more empowered and more powerful place. So if we look at what the Size Fantastic model of health looks like, it's got a neo identity at the heart of it, where you've got personal power and you've got a fresh way to look at yourself, and you're living consciously and informed and powerfully, and homeostasis is restored. You've got greater resilience and health and lasting weight control. So it turns the system turns the model of disease and dissatisfaction and being overweight inside out and upside down, so that when you present to the heart of you and who you are and what's important to you and how and you know how to protect that and nurture it and look after it, everything else changes. I just wanted to share some stories with you of how, the cases where that's happened. One of them is Nikki. He was a life coach. She had lots going on right in her life, and she teaches people how to live their lives and passion and purpose. But she found that there was things that were just not perfect for her in terms of her relationship with food and unmet needs. And she wrote me an email and said, I gained so much through your program and see it as a long-term solution for anyone to be your best. It was one area of my life that needed reinventing, and I'm happy to say that I'm feeling my best me in health, weight, body, and fitness than I have in a long time. And the difference is this time it is long-term and not some fad roller coaster event of I lost a lot and then put it on again. And I loved that, because that's exactly the essence of it. When we go on a diet, we can lose a lot and then put it on again, and it's a yo-yo. And the difference was for Nikki, she felt like she was the best version of herself. And when we're the best version of ourselves, what's key is that everyone wins. It's like a giant ripple effect. And, there's lots of stories of the different ripple effects. Like, for example, Claire, who'd had enough and she never wanted to go on a yo-yo diet again, and she's now lost 7 kgs and more. And she loves the fact that her children notice and comment that she's eating differently. And she loves that she can work with her PT clients without feeling like she's a hypocrite. And her ripple effect is through her transformation, her young children now have a role model, and they're learning to honor themselves and their bodies by watching her, watching their mum, the way that she eats and interacts with food. And that's really powerful. And her clients are watching her and seeing how she is interacting with food. And Claire's also, bringing other people into the Size Fantastic way and learning. And so there's a whole ripple effect on other families too. Another story of a ripple effect is Jenny, another mum with 3 teenage girls, and she decided she wanted to live the Size Fantastic way. And she sent me this email over Easter, and she said, "Hey Lisa, just got your beautiful Easter egg in the mail. I sent it on a B2B Easter egg rather than a chocolate one." She said, "Thank you so much. What a beautiful Good Friday surprise. Here's some encouraging news. Yesterday we added up our family's combined weight loss and started Size Fantastic, a whopping 15 kgs. Have a great weekend." So they've been on the program for about 2 months. And Jenny she lives by the recipe book and the meal plan, and she's just loving it. She said it's made her life so much easier, and everyone's starting to feel the benefits, all sorts of positive benefits, not just weight loss. So that's one of the reasons why I love this program, is because I'm a mum and I love the ripple effect. And I also love, I was fortunate to marry into a family with lots of children and girls already. My husband has 3 grown-up daughters. This is one of them, Fleur, and she's got 5 daughters. So that's me standing with Brooke and a little bundle and my grandchildren, ha, ha, ha. So you can see that there's, the ripple effect. That's our future generation, and I really feel like our future generation of mums need good role models. And the sad and scary statistics are that at the moment more than 14 million Australians are overweight or obese. That's 63%, 2 out of 3 people. 70% of Aussie males are overweight or obese. 56% of Aussie females are overweight or obese. There's a predicted 80% of Aussies will be overweight or obese by 2025. Overweight and obesity is the 5th leading risk for global deaths. The weight loss industry was worth a predicted $644 million last year in Australia and 30 billion worldwide. So, there's an industry that's making a lot of money out of this problem, yet the problem is still trending up. It's getting worse, not better. And I do feel that diets and fad diets are guilty of adding numbers to these statistics. And that's why I'm so passionate about changing the way that we look after ourselves, and how we become Size Fantastic or lose weight and keep it off. And so I just thought at this point I'll probably introduce my program to you, the Size Fantastic Transformation. It's a lifestyle. It's introducing a new lifestyle, a new way of living that's not about dieting. It's a program that combines workshops, some one-on-one time, and some awesome take-home resources and toolkits so that people can live a new normal and celebrate a new normal. There's lots of special events. The program has some workshop time. The workshops are transformational in their own right. And it also has one-on-one components, so that the program is really personalized and individualized to meet your needs, whatever they are. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to take you through the Size Fantastic Lifestyle program and what you can expect. It's a 2-day ignition seminar or breakthrough seminar, personal transformation take-home toolkit package, your strategy for eating your way to health. You get a signed copy of the Size Fantastic book. There's a 1-day gourmet nutrition workshop with me in my kitchen where you learn all sorts of tricks and tips to cook and prepare delicious food that your guests won't even know that it's so delicious and nutritious. A lot of people say, well, the reason that they hate being on a diet or hate eating healthy is because healthy food doesn't taste good. And I've got a certificate in cordon bleu cookery. So one of the things that you gain from our recipe book is really quick and easy ways to live a busy life and to eat delicious food. In the cooking party, we show you a lot of tricks and tips to make healthy food taste really great. And then I also do a one-day upgraded nutrition workshop where you get insight into food and your body, and so that you can learn about how to eat to nourish your body and just how food nourishes your body for health and vitality and longevity. Also, the personal phone consultations, people love those because while they learn so much in the workshops, it really takes it into how do you apply it to your life. What do you need to know? What are you missing? And to be able to have someone that talks you through and coaches you and asks some questions and helps you keep on track and keep accountable, and personalizing the information for yourself. We do have personalized meal plans that you can stay on track, but there also you learn a strategy for eating. So a whole system for eating that makes it easy for you. So it's not about being on a diet. You have a system for eating that's flexible and easy, but also keeps you healthy, and you can do it long term. So we do have ongoing support, online hangouts, online forums, email support forum, Facebook forum, and lots of bonuses to keep us interested. The people, all the participants that have been on the 2-day workshop just love it. They talk about it as being life-changing in itself. We do lots of breakthroughs. It really is just a delicious, wonderful event. And you learn lots in the program. There's lots of modules. Passion Power, where you find your personal motivation. Getting curious, that's where we learn how to become more aware so that you can understand what's driving your behaviors and you know what to do about it. We get into the nuts and bolts of nutrition, and so you learn the knowledge and strategy you need to eat your way slim and healthy. We do lots of practical eating, so that you have the skills and tactics to survive your modern day environment and all the supermarket traps, and so that you don't fall into social and comfort eating traps and self-sabotage. We also look at a lot into mindset. What are your reasons for eating that are unconscious? So, and look at how you can reprogram your mind and lay some new systems, and upgrade your thoughts and your mental habits so that you can talk yourself into success instead of talking yourself out of it. We also look at emotional intelligence. What's a fresh approach to getting your needs met? How can you get your needs met and love yourself back into shape, so that you don't feel so deprived and you don't feel like you have to compensate by turning to food all the time? We look at conscious eating, and we learn how to eat consciously so that we can break out of the emotional eating cycle. We look at how to build muscle for busy people so that you can move in ways that you love, and learn how your body, how moving can create two secret weapons that serve you for weight control and energy. And so giving you options that you move in ways that you love and that you can fit in no matter how busy you are. We also learn how to make changes so that you can break free of resistance and I can't and I don't want to, in nice and healthy ways, rather than in the guilt and the regret and the rebellion cycle. We look at identity and beauty and handling attention so that you can feel safe to change and be your best you without any apologies. You don't have to apologize for extra attention, and you know how to handle it and you feel good and safe. We look at personal power, boundaries, assertiveness, self-care, self-leadership, how to say no, how to ask for more of what you want. Those really important things if you want to be able to control your weight. And maintenance, so that you can survive the plateau and ride that wave so that you go all the way and you're able to keep weight off that you lose over time. So imagine you with the 7 pillars of Size Fantastic. Imagine yourself if you're motivated and feeling more accepting of yourself so that you can live in a more self-honoring way. Imagine you strong in your personal identity and who you are and what you stand for. Imagine being able to make better choices and decisions from a place of wisdom and knowledge. Imagine what you'd be like when you're more mindful and you're making decisions consciously rather than on autopilot, and you're living your life guided in that way rather than just on autopilot and by a reaction to your surroundings. Imagine what you're like when you're courageous and you're more confident in overcoming your barriers, and you're able to break through barriers rather than just getting stuck or leading yourself into self-sabotage. Imagine if you're able to stand up for yourself and be assertive, or say no when you need to say no, and you don't have to use your weight as a protective barrier anymore. Imagine that. And imagine when you're resilient. Imagine you're able to keep motivated, use momentum as a powerful force, not give up, and using failure or just as a stepping stone, and to keep going and just ask for help and persevere to a point that you get to your goals and you meet your needs. Imagine being something different. Imagine you could put the struggle behind you. So the other results and benefits that people reported was major personal breakthroughs and insights, no more cravings, feeling healthier, discovery of underlying health issues like high cholesterol and type 2 diabetes. They didn't know that they were struggling with those things, and of course those things are going to negatively impact on their health and their weight. So isn't that worthwhile finding out earlier rather than later? They reported faster recovery when they fell off the wagon. So it's not that you don't relapse, it's just that you're better equipped to handle it. New healthier habits, greater consciousness around eating behavior and triggers, better equipped to get needs met, new skills and confidence, and feeling like the best version of me, and noticing the knock-on effect in other areas of life, and positively influencing family. So it's another way, and it's an alternative to dieting, and as you can see, there are many more benefits than there are to dieting, which leaves people feeling very deprived and restricted and struggling, and then ends up making the problem worse. So please join me in giving up dieting. And if you are looking for another way beyond dieting, please consider the Size Fantastic way. A way to losing weight healthfully and keeping it off. It's a magical difference, the Size Fantastic program. If you want to find out what the next step is, you can book a discovery session. It is free. You can go to my website and fill out a discovery form, and we can have a chat. The next intake for the program is the 31st of May, so it's coming up really soon. If you're interested in the Size Fantastic way, just fill out your contact details on the website, fill in the discovery form, and we'll have a chat over the phone, and we can see if it's a fit for you. Just quickly, who's this for? And it's for people that are looking to be healthy. It's for people that are looking for vitality, more energy, a strategy for healthy eating that isn't restrictive, lasting healthy weight loss and weight control, longevity. They're mums or role models, or they're wanting to make a difference in their community. They can follow a strategy and learn a new way. Who is this not for? It's not for anyone who's looking for a quick fix. It's not for anyone who's not ready to change. It's not for anyone who's not ready to spend some time on themselves and understanding why they do what they want to do. It's not for someone who's close to possibility or stuck in victim mode, or believes that there is nothing that can help them. And just to put away some ifs and buts, as I know sometimes we can get stuck on some, real issues, and so I just want to put those out the way. Any things that are concerns is I don't have time. Yep, I know what it's like to be time poor and busy. I'm a mum of a toddler. I run a business, we're busy. I created Size Fantastic with that in mind. I created it with busy families in mind. It's designed to fit into the context of your life. Yes, it will take time to implement. Yes, it takes time to change, but you do create a new normal, and soon the only difference is that you'll notice is that you'll probably save time and money, and you'll have more energy and more time and more energy. If you can't if you believe that you can't afford it, there's lots of different price points, lots of different payment options and different programs at different levels. So give me a call, talk to me about your situation, and I'm sure that there's something that we can do that can fit into that. This also, if you feel like other programs didn't work for me, yours won't. This program is deliberately different to other programs. It's deliberately considered all the stuff that makes other programs fail to last and fail to sustain. And it's been considered with that in mind in my 10 years in the industry, plus all the years that I've been researching and learning about this stuff. It is a unique program in that way. Finally, the objective, of not being ready. Well, that's probably, a fairly reasonable position to be in. I'm not going to bully anyone or nudge anyone that isn't ready to make change into the program. But if you are 100% sick of where you're at and you're 100% committed to giving something else and you're going, or you're hungry for change or letting go of where you've been stuck in the past, I encourage you to just pick up the phone and have a chat with me. It is a free discovery session. All we do is we have a chat about where you're at and what your needs are, and we see whether you're a fit for the program. You can ask me any questions about the program. You just go to that www.sizefantastic.com.au/weight loss, and you'll be able to find more information there. So on that note, if anyone has any questions or any thoughts, please share your top ahas with me. If I went too fast or you want more clarity over anything, I'm going to grab the iPad, the screen now, and we can just have a little chat. But otherwise, do book for your discovery session with me and we can have a chat over the phone a little bit more. Otherwise, send me your questions. I'm looking forward to answering them. And please, if you've had any ahas from this evening, I would love to hear those too, so that we can share those around. I always love feedback. So thank you for joining me and for staying with me till the end. I'll just check my iPad. Oh, thank you for those that are responding with a thank you. Just giving a few seconds to allow the delay to hit through, but otherwise, thank you for joining us, everyone. And give me a minute before you sign off to see if there's any questions. We're all good. Well, thank you. If I've missed any of your questions, I'll be sure to flick through an email for you. Otherwise, I'll catch you online somewhere or over the phone. Thank you for joining me. This is Lisa Cutforth, Size Fantastic, signing off. Good night.